Hello and welcome to the program. Another week and another story about human trafficking here in North Texas. This time it happened in Collin County, where authorities uncovered a large labor trafficking operation at a home in Princeton. Law enforcement says it's a perfect example of if you see something, say something. After a pest control worker showed up at a house on Ginsburg Lane in Princeton and became suspicious when he noticed the number of women who were having to sleep on the floor at the house. Investigators say they later learned that multiple locations in Princeton, Melissa, and McKinney were involved in the forced labor operation. Now, this is not the first time that authorities have uncovered human trafficking rings in our area. Just last month in Louisville, authorities busted up a prostitution ring and arrested suspects involved in trafficking young women. And then last December, you may remember, police in Plano busted up a sex trafficking ring that had been in operation for years at a home in Plano. The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI both say they need our help to end this crime. And just like the pest control worker who helped authorities this week bust up that ring in Collin County, they say if you see something, say something. Here in our area, we have an incredible nonprofit that not only raises awareness about the issue of human trafficking, but they also help those who have been trafficked. And that nonprofit is New Friends, New Life. Their mission is to restore and empower formerly trafficked girls and sexually exploited women and children. Joining me on the phone today is Bianca Davis. Bianca is the Chief Executive Officer of New Friends, New Life. Bianca, thank you so much for joining the program today.
Thank you for having me, Anna.
Bianca, when it comes to human trafficking, a lot of people think this is a problem that doesn't happen in North Texas in the U.S. It happens in third world countries far away from us, or they think it happens in rough neighborhoods. But that is simply not the case. What is the reality that you see, Bianca, here in North Texas?
The reality is that human trafficking is a very prevalent crime that's happening right in our state, right in our community, and in our backyards. In fact, Texas ranks second in the nation for highest number of human trafficking victims, just behind California. And we have an estimated 313,000 victims of this crime in our state. I also think it's important to note that human trafficking is an umbrella term that includes both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. So the recent bust in Princeton falls squarely under the human trafficking definition, which is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel someone to either work against their will or to commit a sexual act. So it's happening right under our noses every single day.
How happy were you to see that not only was this operation busted up by authorities, but that it was thanks to somebody who went into the home, thought something suspicious was going on, and alerted authorities?
You know, it is so encouraging, I think, for the everyday person to realize that we can do something about it. When you hear the numbers, when you hear the statistics, it seems like such a big problem. And you're like, how can I ever make a difference? But this pest control worker is absolute proof that each one of us can be eyes and ears to help someone out of a terrible situation. So it shows that education and awareness, those things are working to put our antennas up so that we're paying attention to what's happening in our own circles. And that led to such important relief for those victims in this case.
Now, in the case of the pest control worker, he noticed a large number of people living in the home, that they were having to sleep on floors. He noticed computers, tables set up, not necessarily home furnishings. That's what arose his suspicions. What should people be on the lookout for?
Yes, you know, when it comes to labor trafficking, it's things like that. If there are people confined in an area in conditions that aren't normal living conditions, if they are being paid in cash or are being underpaid, when it comes to sex trafficking, when it comes to our teens, which, by the way, a 15-year-old girl is the most targeted age group of a sex trafficking victim,
Oh, wow.
but you're looking for someone who has an older boyfriend who may be coming home with jewelry or money that her parents didn't give her, who may be branded with a tattoo. You're just looking for anything that's out of the ordinary. I think the most important piece to remember is we have to consider human trafficking when something's out of place. So it can be, I can give you 400 things to look for, and someone will show up with the 401st thing, right? But the bottom line is, if anything's out of place, if something's wrong, if the hairs are standing up on the back of your neck, or things just don't add up, it's important for us to consider, is human trafficking at play here? Is this person working under conditions that they aren't aware of, or are they being forced to commit sexual acts?
I've noticed, especially at the airport, that there are signs now in bathroom stalls that say, if you are the victim of human trafficking or sex trafficking, call this number, alert an authority. Does that encourage you, Bianca?
It does. I think it's an important step, but I think there's another step that needs to happen, because one of the reasons that human trafficking flourishes is because people don't identify as victims. If you are brought here or you're working for someone in a bait and switch situation where you thought the job was going to be one thing and you find out that it's something totally different, you may not necessarily know that you are a victim of labor trafficking. When it comes to sex trafficking, we're thinking if you're not in a basement, or if you weren't kidnapped in a white van, if you don't have on chains, then obviously I'm not sex trafficked, but we know that that's not the case. So I think the next step that's needed when it comes to the signage is more imagery or verbiage that really explains what that means. Because if you only say, if you're a victim of human trafficking, call this number, people are going to look at that and be like, oh, I'm not a victim, so that doesn't apply to me. But if it's something that says, are you being forced to commit a sexual act where someone else has profited? Or are you working under conditions that were not the same as what was stipulated when you agreed to the job? You know, something that shows or explains what that means, I think that would help. But I am always encouraged by any step that we take to raise awareness to the issue.
Bianca, what makes young girls and women vulnerable to traffickers?
You know, Anna, the trafficker is such a master manipulator. He is looking, and I say he because traffickers are mainly men, but there are instances where women are recruited to become traffickers as well. But he is looking for any crack in her foundation, any need that she has in life. So if she's a 14-year-old girl that's being bullied in school, or doesn't feel loved at home, or doesn't have the financial resources of her friends or her peers, he's going to come in and say, I can fix this for you. I can help you pay your mom's rent. You're so beautiful. We're looking for girls just like you for a photo shoot that we're doing in Houston. So what makes a young girl vulnerable is the very thing that makes us all human, the basic needs of food, water, and shelter, love, safety, and protection, belonging, all of those needs. He's looking for, is there something that she's not getting? Let me find a way to get it for her before I flip the switch and put her into this horrible and dangerous situation.
Isn't there a brainwashing of the victim, and that is why you say that oftentimes they don't consider themselves to be victims of trafficking?
Certainly. There is a grooming that takes place in many cases. The trafficker often shows up as a love interest. So now she's like, well, he cares about me. This is my boyfriend, or this is my spouse. Or in the horrible situations where teens are trafficked by their parents. So we have seen that at New Friends, New Life, where the parents have a drug habit or a gambling addiction or some other thing that makes them look for resources, and they sell their own children. So in those instances, there is this mental gap that happens. You're like, well, this person loves me, or this is the person that I trust. So you don't identify as someone who's being victimized. This isn't, in many cases, a stranger danger situation. It's someone you know and love, and that's why it makes it so difficult to determine that this is a crime and this should not be happening to me.
My guest once again on the phone today, Bianca Davis. Bianca is the Chief Executive Officer of New Friends, New Life. They are a nonprofit whose mission is to restore and empower trafficked and sexually exploited teen girls, women, and children, providing them access to education, to job training, mental health, spiritual support, and so much more. New Friends, New Life also drives awareness of the issue of human trafficking and its prevalence. Think it can't happen in your neighborhood? Well, think again. Just this past week, authorities in Collin County busted up a human trafficking ring at a home in Princeton, and authorities say the operation was also working out of homes in McKinney and Melissa, and that is just this past week. For information on the work that New Friends, New Life is doing to raise awareness and to help the victims of human trafficking, go to newfriendsnewlife.org. There is a link for signs that you should be on the lookout for, kind of an educational tool that you can use, because oftentimes when we think of human traffickers, Bianca, we think that person's going to look like the boogeyman, and that is not the case.
Right. He is the everyday person who is going to show up in many cases, as I said, as a knight in shining armor. He shows up as a good guy or sends someone to appear to be a good person in that victim's life. So it's very difficult to identify who the bad guys are, who the traffickers are.
Let's talk about the programs that you have in place to help survivors of sex trafficking and human trafficking, Bianca, because you have so many programs that are set up to help these women and these young girls get out of that life.
Yes, and so New Friends, New Life started now 26 years ago working to restore and empower women and girls impacted by sex trafficking. We work to provide the basic needs because, as I mentioned, the trafficker is really preying on any crack in her foundation. So what are her basic needs around food and shelter and living conditions? We help connect her with those resources. And one of the things that sets us apart is the trauma-informed counseling that we provide, because survivors of sex trafficking in particular have gone through sometimes years of sexual abuse, emotional trauma, and so our clinicians are prepared to unpack that safely and get them on the road to recovery. And then the third and final piece, which I think is so critical, is how do we now reintegrate this person, this survivor, into the community when she may not have education. She might have a criminal record because of what she was forced to do while she was being trafficked. She has limited work experience. So what are the doors that we can open for her in those areas? So we have an on-site attorney to help with her records or criminal records. We just opened up an on-site learning academy, so we are helping our women to get their GED and to move forward in their education. We're just looking at what those roadblocks are to her having that safe, financially stable life that she deserves. And we do the same thing with our teen girls. On the teen side, we focus a lot on education. Like, what are your dreams? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to go and get a skill? Or do you want to go right into the workforce? So we just create options for women and girls who have gone through this trauma of being trafficked and onto the life that they really deserve.
What is the impact that you see from the work that New Friends, New Life is doing?
I mean, every single day when I walk out of my office, I can look down the hall and see a woman who is preparing for her GED, or someone who just got a job, or someone who just signed a lease in her own name. Everyday victories that we who have not been traumatized in this way may just see it as, okay, that's what happens. But to a survivor of trafficking, that control that she's been under, all of the roadblocks that she has faced, all of these everyday victories are like the biggest thing ever. And so seeing the transformation and the work that survivors put into restoring their own lives just brings me so much hope and lets me know that if we can just clear the path, these women are resilient, they are strong, they're brave, they're all the things that every other woman, all the qualities that every other woman has, these women have that too. And so our goal at New Friends to Life is to just remove barriers, open doors, and let them soar. I love going to work every day and just seeing what's happening in their lives and the work that they're putting into making a difference in their own lives.
Bianca, what do you think the biggest misconception is about the women that you serve?
I think the biggest misconception is that it was their choice. So sometimes people will look at a woman who's coming out of a strip club or who has been escorting and they're saying, oh, this is just someone who made a series of bad choices or who is making her own choice to do this. And so that's how they perceive her. But when you go back to the definition of this federal crime, human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion. And this fraud piece, this coercion piece is so subtle. There's not a woman who comes through our doors who says, this is what I wanted for my life. I wanted to be assaulted by however many people, number of people, or I wanted to live this life or dance in this club for the rest of my life. No woman says that. So I think the misconception is that this was her choice. But at New Friends, New Life, we know that it's not a choice. The survivor said it's actually the absence of choice that led me down this path.
Among the programs that you have outreach to men because New Friends, New Life knows that men need to do their part in the fight against human trafficking, sex trafficking, which is why you have a men's advocacy group. Can you tell me about that and how men can get involved in helping New Friends, New Life?
Yes, we are so well aware that if we're ever going to end this issue or make serious inroads in the solution, we have to bring our good guys to the table. And so our men's advocacy group started about 11 years ago, made up of businessmen, athletes, clergy, prominent and everyday men in the community who say that it's not just that I'm not going to purchase another human being, but what else can I do? And so they do things like come in after training and conduct mock interviews with our women to prepare them for the working world. They come in on Valentine's Day and bring flowers and candy, and our women say time and time again, I've never had an experience where it was something for nothing, where a man gave me a compliment and I didn't owe him something, or he shared something with me and I didn't then have to repay. So they just help to restore that balance on what the healthy relationship can look like just between a woman and a man. And they also help us to educate teen boys in the school systems who are on sports teams or in their church groups on age-appropriate, healthy relationships, because the average buyer is a 45-year-old male, and studies show that about 66% of the time he's married and has disposable income. So it's literally our everyday men who are perpetuating this industry as the buyer. And so if we can teach a 15-year-old boy to respect and to have a healthy relationship with other girls, then he won't grow up to be that 45-year-old man. He can have different thoughts around what that means. And so our men's advocacy group is so critical, and men who are listening can get involved by just going to our website, newfriendsnewlife.org, and clicking on Get Involved, and you will see more information about the men's advocacy group.
Bianca, it's Major League Baseball All-Star Weekend, and when it comes to big sporting events, law enforcement is always on high alert for victims of human trafficking because traffickers are going to go where the customers are, which is another reason why it's so important to do what you do, educate men about what is truly going on, because it is not a victimless crime. Now, one of the things that you do is that you work with companies who are getting ready for a convention or a big meeting or for All-Star Weekend to let them know to change their corporate entertainment practices. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, we have a program that's called the No Harm Network that's available to any corporate entity. And what we're doing is just helping to raise awareness within that corporation about the things that they can do to help fight this crime, regardless of the industry they're in. So we suggest things like monitoring or restricting access to porn sites using company equipment. So that's computers and phones. We're also, as you mentioned, looking at reimbursements policies around company lunches or dinners. You know, we had someone share that in his first job, he was an accountant, and the company lunch for the new accountants was at a strip club.
Oh, wow.
And that stuff, so reimbursing for entertainment in what's called sexually oriented businesses, members of our No Harm Network agree that they will not reimburse for those activities, that they will restrict and block access to online pornography, because the prime time for viewing online porn, you're going to, this is one of the most startling stats. The prime time for viewing online porn is 2 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Oh, wow. During the workday.
That's literally in the middle of the workday. So once again, for an issue that seems so big and corporations are thinking, what in the world can I do about human trafficking? We're like, here are some of the things that you can do. You can monitor what's happening from the technology. You can look at reimbursements. Then the other part of that is engaging in volunteer opportunities with New Friends New Life. We have a garden where our women work, where volunteers can come and help in the garden. That's been so popular. There are other ways that you can work in the donations closet or provide lunch or dinner for our members. So that volunteer piece is such an important connecting point for corporations.
And for information, people can go to newfriendsnewlife.org. My guest once again on the phone, Bianca Davis, the Chief Executive Officer of New Friends New Life. They are a nonprofit that restores and empowers formerly trafficked and sexually exploited teen girls, women, and their children. They provide access to education, to job training, mental health, and spiritual support. And we're highlighting them today because, once again, a human trafficking ring has been busted up here in North Texas. And it was thanks to a pest control worker who was called to a home in Princeton and who noticed that there was a large number of people having to sleep on the floor. And after becoming suspicious, he ended up calling authorities. In this case, it was an issue of forced labor. But last month in Denton County, authorities busted up a sex trafficking ring. And as this crime of modern-day slavery becomes more and more prevalent, I wanted to raise awareness and to shine a light on a nonprofit that focuses on this issue and that helps those who are survivors of this crime. Once again, for information about New Friends New Life, go to their website, newfriendsnewlife.org. So we talked about ways that the community can help out. They can volunteer. Just go to the website. You can donate things. Also, back to school time is coming up, and I know that you have children that are involved.
Yes.
Let's talk about the luncheon. It's coming up September 20th, Omni Dallas Hotel. How does the luncheon help raise awareness and help raise funds for the work that you do?
Yes, we are so excited about our luncheon coming up on September 20th. It's our single largest fundraiser, and as a nonprofit, all of our funds are raised through grants or special events or individual contributions, and it's the only way that we're able to provide the services that we provide at no cost to the women and the girls that we serve. And so we encourage the community to come out and support us for this year's luncheon. We are on the cusp of announcing our luncheon speaker, but you do not have to wait to know who that person is. What we can guarantee is that you will be in the room with like-minded people who are interested in making a difference on this issue, and you will hear a message that will inspire and challenge and encourage you to make a difference. I am always in awe when I walk into that room and see 1,200 people who have given their money and their time and are showing up in the middle of the day to say this is important and we stand for her with you. It just blows me away every single time. And so I encourage individuals and corporations to go ahead and register for our luncheon. And as soon as we're able to announce our speaker, we will share that with you, and you will be even more excited to join us.
Bianca, earlier you mentioned a pretty ugly statistic when it comes to human trafficking. Among them, the average age a young girl enters the sex trade is 15. Do you go into the schools? Do you have that kind of outreach to help teach these vulnerable girls what to look out for?
Yes, we do. As we go in with the men's advocacy group to talk to teen boys, we also talk to girls, and we work through the case managers and the caseworkers in schools or in different groups. We work a lot with the National Charity League that's made up of moms and their daughters, Jack and Jill that's also made up of moms and children. And so we work through these groups to educate our girls as well as our boys. And I think it's important to note that when it comes to any crime, particularly crimes that happen against women and girls disproportionately, it seems that the onus stays on the victim to do something about it, right? So if someone is sexually assaulted, what do you always hear? Well, what was she wearing and what time of night was it? Was she drinking? It's always, what can she do? What should she have done? How did she contribute to that? But what we know is it's not her fault. And as a 15-year-old girl, she should not be held responsible, for those things or for this crime. But we do encourage our girls to monitor and to be aware of who they're communicating with online, because that's the number one way that traffickers are getting to the girls. They are grooming them through social media apps, developing relationships, and then organizing a meetup. And at New Friends, New Life, we serve about 100 teen girls a year, and we found out that almost 60% of our girls met in person someone that they met online.
Wow.
That is so dangerous. And by the time the meetup happens, she is at the greatest risk. Girls are meeting up with traffickers, and they're going home to their parents every night. So you are in your safe home, you are at your dining table, and you think all is well. And she is about to meet someone who has nothing but evil plans, terrible plans for her. We had a corporal come in for our men's breakfast a couple of weeks ago, and he spoke and he said the most dangerous place for a teen is in their bedroom with a cell phone.
Yeah, very much
so. That online piece is so critical and so important. So that's the education that we share with girls about not being so trusting and understanding that it's not always what it looks like. You think you're talking to another 15-year-old boy. You may be talking to a 40-year-old man out of another state who's going to come in and have you meet him at the mall or at the movies. And then what, right? So, yes, we do educate girls as well as boys on this issue.
And you have some incredible education resources on the website, newfriendsnewlife.org, including a page for parents, 10 ways that parents can prevent and identify human trafficking. For parents who don't think their child is at risk, think again. I encourage you to go to the website and educate yourself about this issue. I want to thank my guest, Bianca Davis. She's actually on vacation right now, and she agreed to be on the program after I saw the news that broke this week about the situation in Collin County. I immediately reached out to Bianca, and even though she's on vacation, she's joining the program to raise awareness and to let us know about the work that New Friends, New Life is doing. She is the CEO of New Friends, New Life, and they are a nonprofit restoring and empowering formerly trafficked and sexually exploited teen girls, women, and their children. Find out more at newfriendsnewlife.org. Thank you so much, Bianca, for taking time out of your vacation to be on the program today.
Of course. You're so welcome. The criminals aren't taking a break, right? They aren't taking a break. And so we won't take a break either. We say at our office all the time, our women show up. As long as they show up, we have to show up. And so I'm so glad that you reached out. I'm so proud of the work that's happening with law enforcement, Homeland Security, and the everyday people in our community who are on the lookout. I would take this call any day of the week, so I'm so happy you reached out.
Bianca, I can't thank you enough, and your team there at New Friends, New Life. And if you'd like to support them, just know that there are volunteer opportunities. You can donate to them online. And, of course, the annual luncheon coming up on September 20th at the Omni Dallas Hotel. Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you so much.